Hey y'all, my name is Kayla and welcome to my cozy chaotic corner of the internet. I don't know what my hair is doing right now, but you know, such is life. In today's video, we are going to be delving into Lady Macbeth by Reid, A House with Good Bones by Kingfisher, and Watermoon by Samantha Soto. Don't remember that author's name off the top of the noggin. This is part of a series I'm trying out. Let me know if you like this style of reading vlog. It's more direct and to the point, a little less vloggy bits. I just would love your insight. And while you're down in the comments letting me know your thoughts and opinions about this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you feel so obliged. But with all of that noted, let's hop into the books. I am currently like 20% into the audiobook for Watermoon. First and foremost, I'm trash with names, especially when I can't see them. I don't know the characters' names, but so far we have like 3 characters that we're really dealing with. We have a father and a daughter who run a magical pawn shop, and what they will pawn you for or swap you for are moments in your life that you hold close to your chest that cause you some sort of uneasiness in your life. And so they'll like take that moment so you no longer have it, but they give you something else. So the father, he's like the guy running the pawn shop. The next day, we meet them one day. Let's say we meet him on a Monday. On a Tuesday, he's like giving his daughter the pawn shop to take it over. On Tuesday, the daughter wakes up and the entire pawn shop is in disarray, and it looks like her father has... How to explain? It looks like there was a robbery. On first glance, the place looked like it was ransacked and there was a robbery, and the father left the pawn shop to chase this person down. However, because they're from a magical realm, the pawn shop deals with Earth, and they're from a magical realm, and they can only really exist in the pawn shop, and to leave the pawn shop is like pretty much being exiled, and you don't really know what happens to people who leave the pawn shop. As the daughter is about to leave out of the pawn shop to go find her father, a man walks into the pawn shop, and he pretty much, long story short, he's a scientist, and she kind of explains to him what happened and why she's like leaving the pawn shop. And then upon kind of like explaining the situation to him, she's looking around realizing like, it's almost too perfect. Like, it looks like it's ransacked, but it looks staged. Then explains that to him. He's like, I think this is staged. I think this is my father doing one of his little puzzles on me. Because when she was growing up, he would always do puzzles where she had to solve the puzzle. And if she solved the puzzle, she got a little treat. The scientist dude eventually ends up being like, okay, well, I'll help you. He pretty much finds out that there's such thing as portals. And there's a portal at the back of the pawn shop, which looks like a pond. He's trying to like figure out what the heck is this portal? It's like a wormhole. It's this thing. And she's just so like, what? She's so nonchalant, so stoic. And it's so funny to see like the scientist like losing his marbles over the fact that he just went through a puddle and now he's in a whole different world. And she's just like, I don't know what you're talking about, homie. This is like normal. So remember how I said that our main character in Watermoon, by the way, his name is Cation, how he's a scientist? Well, they were having this discussion. I don't really remember what the discussion was about, but they were having a discussion, and Hannah, who's our main female character, she just like kissed him, and he's like, what are you doing? And she kisses him again, and then she's all like, science. I mean, she didn't really say it, but that's what it alluded to. She's like, this is just, a test. Just testing out our hypothesis or something like that. I literally do not remember what the conversation was about. I just remember being like, okay. Not Hannah's dad straight up calling her out and being like, bitch, you love this man. What the fuck are you doing? I'll go run off into the sunset with him. I can't. Nope. I need this. I need like a physical copy of this book so I could like annotate the bejesus out of it. Oh my god, it's so sweet. I have like 15 minutes left of this audiobook, and I don't know how to feel because we were just left with a very like high octane chapter and then it just stops and it cuts to a year later and I'm very upset right now. And I don't want this book to end without answers. I say that as like literally the motto of this entire book is like, nothing is as it seems. Oh my god. I'm gonna have to like reread this book, but physically read it and not just listen to the audiobook, because this is one of those books where if I was physically reading it, I know for a fact I would be flipping back and forth being like, wait, what is going on? There have been so many times where I'm like, I'm lost and confused, and then things like details get added and you're like, okay, making a little more sense, and then all of a sudden you get confused again. Or maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know, but oh my god, y'all, it's supposed to snow today. Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yambao. Characters, I gave it a 5. I really liked the character. Actually, no, I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna give it a 4. I liked our 2 main characters. We had Hana and, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Starts with a K. Anyways, we had Hana and Mr. Man. I really liked those 2. I loved their very opposite quirks, where for Hana, everything's just so matter of fact and this is just how the world works. And then Mr. Man is a scientist dude, so he's always questioning everything. I loved that dynamic. I love those 2 characters so much. I would say though, like all the other characters, all the side quest characters were just kind of like there. I feel like, did they add to the parts that they existed in? Sure. But to the overall story, did you really need any of the side quest characters? Not really. For writing, I gave it a 5, but I'm actually going to change that to a 4. I like the writing style in the sense that sometimes I feel when it comes to fantasy books, it can get a little heavy and weighted and not fun. And I feel like this was like a little lighter, a little breezier. There was sass to it, which I really loved. I love when writing can be sassy. It also wasn't a book where I was like hanging on to every single word. I feel like if I'm hanging on to every single word, that's when you know I'm obsessed with the writing. And this one, I was just like, I really enjoyed it. I liked the flow of it. For plot, I gave it a 4. For originality, I gave it a 5. I'm sure there are other storylines out there that are very similar to Watermoon. The rating scale is always based off of my experiences in the world of reading. Have I personally consumed anything ever like this before in my entire life? And while I'm sure I have when I was younger, recently, do I have anything else I could compare it to? Not really. Rereadability, I gave this a 5 because I actually would love to reread it with like an actual copy of the book. I listened to this solely on audiobook, which is why I've been struggling to remember the characters' names. Emotional impact, I give this a 5. This book made me cry. Anytime a book makes me either cry or like want to scream into a pillow, automatically gonna be 5. Resolution, I gave it a 3. Mostly because I just didn't know how I felt about the ending. I appreciated how the ending happened. A part of me wished it had ended differently. That's why it's a 3. Pacing, I gave it a 5. At no point was I ever bored. At no point was I ever thought it was going by too quickly. I think it was just an evenly paced, great pacing. 5. Pacing 5. And then overall enjoyment, I gave it a 5. At the end of the day, I actually really enjoyed this book. Pacing, I'm gonna go back actually. Pacing, I'm gonna give this a 3. Just because at no point was I like, did I ever think it was going by too quickly? Or was it going by too slow? But there were definitely times where I was just kind of like, meh. And maybe that has more to do with perhaps like the plot or even the writing. Yeah. Not the writing. I feel like it would probably have more to do with the plot on why I kind of sometimes felt like, meh. Do I want to change the plot score to 3? I'm going to change the plot score to 3. That's what we're doing. So plot, we're changing to 3. I think the plot is why it sometimes felt just kind of meh. And then pacing, I'm also going to leave that at a 3. And then enjoyment, I would still say it's a 5. Which brings our final rating to 4.11. While I would love to reread it, I'm not sure, like, the reality of that reread. Let's be real, I don't really reread books. Currently consuming A House with Good Bones, and I want to read the synopsis to y'all real quick because I'm 2 chapters in and I have some thoughts, but I feel like I need to read the synopsis before I say my thoughts. Mom seems off. Her brother's words echo in Sam Montgomery's ears as she turns onto the quiet North Carolina street where their mother lives alone. She brushes the thought away as she climbs the front steps. Sam's excited for this rare extended visit and looking forward to nights with just the 2 of them, drinking boxed wine, watching murder mystery shows, and guessing who the killer is long before the characters figure it out. But stepping inside, she quickly realizes home isn't what it used to be. Gone is the warm, cluttered charm her mom is known for. Now the walls are painted a sterile white. Her mom jumps at the smallest noises and looks over her shoulder, even when she's the only person in the room. And when Sam steps out back to clear her head, she finds a jar of teeth hidden beneath the magazine-worthy rose bushes, and vultures are circling the garden from above. To find out what's got her mom so frightened in her own home, Sam will go to digging for the truth, but some secrets are better left buried. So right off the rip, what you need to know about the mother, like, we get this information literally within the first 2 chapters, is that Sam's mom is super liberal, super bright colors, fun time, good time, love it all. But now Sam's mom is acting more like Sam's grandma, who used to reside in the house that Sam's mom currently resides in. Sam's grandma had doilies, was a very southern woman, if you know what I mean. She had this painting of a Confederate wedding, and, you know, that was grandma. That was Grams. So when Grams passed away and Sam's mom took over the house was changed drastically, okay? It was painted bright colors, got rid of that creepy old Confederate painting. We threw up a fish mural or something along those lines, and it was great. It was a good time. But again, Sam's now home and things are suspicious. And all I have to say is, like, one of 2 things. 1, Sam's mom is now possessed by the dead grandma. Or 2, dead grandma is a ghost. Sleep paralysis demon situation going on here. And the mom is scared so to her core that she will do anything to appease the ghosty grandma. Okay? Like, those are literally the only 2 things I can think of. Possession or haunting. If it's a haunting, just leave. You know? If it's a possession, clearly we need an exorcist to make an appearance in this book. But yeah, I'm curious where this is gonna go, because I feel just right off the rip, like, those are our only 2 options. And if it's something outside of that, I will be shooketh to my core. There are some very convincing lines of words that are pointing in the direction that this is a haunted house, okay? First and foremost, we have Sam, who's the daughter. I honestly don't know the mom's name, so we're just gonna call her Mom. And then there's Grandma. Grandma's dead, okay? But it was Grandma's house. So there's Mom, there's Grandma, there's Sam, there's Brad, who's Sam's brother, and then there's Maria, who is Brad's wife, okay? Cool. Sam calls Brad, because remember, Brad was like, hey, Sam, something sketch about Mom. And so Sam is like, yeah, there's something very odd about Mom. And Brad had mentioned that Maria, who is his wife, who is a Hispanic woman, Mom doesn't want Maria coming over. However, the last time Maria was at Mom's house, she broke her foot. And the way she broke her foot is one of the old cabinets, just a hinge came loose and it fell on her foot. Coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think so. Then the next line was, as they were leaving after the broken foot incident happened, they were leaving the house to go home, right? Apparently, Mom gave Maria a huge hug, and during that hug, she told her not to come back and that it wasn't safe for Maria to be there. Maria confirmed that Mom seemed genuinely scared for her. Mom knows there's a ghost, and she's warning Maria. Mom knows not only there's a ghost, there's the racist ghost of Grandma around. Actually, I'm curious if it's even Grandma, because there's like a creepy picture of some like old grandpa, old man. There's a new old picture up on the walls, and maybe it's him. Maybe it's him. So that situation happened. Maria, foot broken, no more, no bueno. Mom's like, hey, Maria, it's not safe for you here. Don't come back, okay? That happens. Then, as Sam and Brad keep talking about the situation, they're like, okay, here's some possibilities outside of the realm of, like, supernatural. Because they aren't on the supernatural page. Kayla's on the supernatural page. But possibilities of why Mom is acting strange, why she's lost a lot of weight, why she seems to be on this weird nostalgia kick is Mom has a stalker. Mom is depressed and potentially missing Grandma, and that's why they think like maybe she's making the house seem more like it was when Grandma lived there, because she's like missing her mom and she's dealing with the grief and depression of that. Or there's the possibility that Mom has dementia or something along those lines. And I wrote house has a ghost because I think I'm right. But to further confirm my ghost story, so Mom is actually, during this time, the past 2 days now, Sam's been at the house all by herself. Mom is off on work. She does this thing pretty much where she wrangles small time celebrities, and so Mom's doing that. But the entire time that Mom has been away and Sam's been home alone, first and foremost, Wi-Fi questionable at best, cell service non-existent at the house. So the mom has been calling Sam, texting Sam nonstop, checking in on her all the time. And then she's like, oh, duh. She even texted like, oops, sorry, I forgot. Like, you don't have any service there. And so it's late at night. She's just chilling there watching TV, and she hears the door unlock. And it's nothing too crazy. Mom just came home early. And Sam's like, what are you doing home so early, mother? And the mom says, I didn't like the thought of you having to be here all by yourself. Sam is a full-grown woman. Why does Mom not want her being at home all by herself? Perhaps the same reason she didn't want Maria to come back, because she knew that Maria wouldn't be safe at the house. Now she's just concerned about everyone. I think she's heavily concerned about everyone because obviously Maria's foot got broken. And now she's like, no one can be home in this house by themselves. Maybe, so earlier I said, if it's a ghost, just leave. But maybe she's staying at the house because it's a ghost and she doesn't want anyone else to be haunted by the ghost of her ancestors. Also, they mentioned this thing called like the underground children. And I might have to go back and reread that section because it's an interesting like urban legend situation. But I feel like they didn't really go in depth about who the underground children were or what they actually do. So I'm curious if it's going to come back or not. Anyways, so yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Mom just came home unexpectedly because she was concerned about Sam being home alone. And Sam's just playing it off like, Mom, I'm like a 30-year-old woman. I think I'm okay home alone. I don't know if she's 30 years old. She just mentioned that she's home alone. Earlier, I had mentioned that perhaps the presence in the house is this old man whose painting just magically appeared. It didn't magically appear. The mom put up the painting. But the more I think about it, so Sam, Brad, and Mom had all lived at this house with Grandma, right? While some odd things happened at this house, oh my God, I just had an epiphany. Okay. Hold on. Let me finish this thought and then we'll go back to this epiphany I literally just had. So my initial thought is that it's not this old man. It's the grandma haunting. But then I just had an epiphany that the grandma used to do very strange things to Sam in regards to a rose bush in the garden. Like there's this rose bush. It's an underlying theme. There's something going on with this rose bush. Now I'm thinking maybe the grandma was behaving oddly because of the house being haunted by the old man. So maybe the grandma's not even haunting the house anymore. like the house itself has always been possessed, which I kind of made reference to that earlier, but I was like, the house is possessed. But I think like the house is possessed and like it's just been passed down through the lineage so that like no one else has to deal with this possessed house. Look at that gorgeous dog back there. She's so pretty. You're so pretty, you know that? Yeah? Are you okay? Okay. I will say there are some like moments of over explanation. Sam is an etymologist, which is the person who studies bugs, and sometimes she can get a little lost in the bug sauce, if you will. Sam was looking at old family photos, and she was looking at a family photo of herself on her graduation date. And in the photo, she saw, for the first time ever, a little skeleton hand reaching towards her from the rose bushes. What? I'm really getting into annotating this year. Last year I did a lot of tabbing, but this year I'm getting into like minimal sparkly annotating. Anyways, this is my annotation. Observe it in all its glory. It resolved into fingers and thumb and wrist. A child's hand based on proportions. And then went further into some descriptors, but I wrote, if you didn't already see, the underground children. So I think we are definitely going to be learning more about the underground children, and I could not be more excited. She finally asked the right question. And what is the right question? Is the house haunted? As soon as she said that, I was like, it took you long enough. It took you long enough. After all the craziness, after all the little crumbs, all the little puzzle pieces, she finally asked the right question. Does she believe the house is haunted? No, but finally we're going in the right direction. This is apparently a common occurrence where I think I'm like glazing over a section. In the synopsis, remember we read the synopsis a while ago? It noted that Sam finds a jar of human teeth in the rose bushes. It only took 153 pages for that part of the synopsis to come into play. She just found the jar of teeth. And this entire time I was like, did she already find the teeth? And I'm just like losing my marbles. No, she just found the teeth. I don't think I've ever read a book where an element of the synopsis didn't happen in like the first half of the book. That's wild. Okay, y'all. Let's talk about A House with Good Bones. So, A House with Good Bones, when it comes to characters, I gave this a 5. I actually really liked the characters. I feel like they all had very unique personalities. You could really tell like who all these individuals were. So I appreciated that. I feel like sometimes characters are just like plopped into a story for no reason, but all of these characters had all of their own little quirks, and they really added to like the unique Southern charm of this all. For writing, I gave this a 5. I actually really enjoyed the writing, and I find that when it comes to writing, if I'm like heavily annotating a book, if I'm sitting there like, oh, that was a nice line, that was a cute line, that was like a fun moment, that's usually when I enjoy the writing the most. If I'm like just consuming a book and there's no annotation going on whatsoever, it's usually because I'm not as engaged with the writing of the book. Like I may be engaging with the story, but the actual writing and how the story is being presented, I'm not engaging with. So I definitely was up in here tabbing and highlighting and writing in the margins. I think that's how I can tell that I'm really enjoying the writing of a book. For plot, I gave this a 5. Originality, I gave it a 4. Because at the end of the day, this is a haunting. You can only be so original when it comes to certain tropes and storylines, right? So while, I mean, a 4 is still a 4, right? It's still pretty high up there. It's not as though the storyline and the plot of it all was unexpected, right? Rereadability, I gave this a 2. The reason for the 2. After I did my thriller reading and rating and all of that, I think I want to get like a little more scrupulous with, if that's the right word, with my rating, like to genuinely be so totally for real with you when it comes to A House with Good Bones, like, am I gonna actually pick it up and reread it? Probably not. I think a 1 would be like, for sure, I'm never picking this up ever again. But a 2 is like, I mean, maybe someday down the road, if I get an itch, there's a possibility, but that possibility is like so low. Emotional impact, I gave this a 4. Why did I give this a 4? I think I'm gonna give this a 3, actually. Yeah, we're adjusting this. I'm giving it a 3 because I would say it's average. When I think of emotional impact, I think of like, was I crying? Was I angry? Like, did I feel big emotions? And if no, it's just gonna, I think 3 is probably the lowest emotional impact will ever be for any book I read. I can't imagine myself giving emotional impact anything lower, because for me, if there is no emotional connection to the story in any capacity, those are the books I DNF. Those are the books I get bored with, because for me, I'm a character girly. And character girlies usually require emotional impact. Resolution, I gave a 3. I loved the story. I loved kind of like trying to guess what was going on. But then when the big event at the end happened, I was just kind of like, that's literally the part where I kind of like glazed over and I was like, I don't care. Like, it was interesting. And then also, I mean, I did like the ending, but like the part that got from like you got to the climax to the ending, that part, the downfall of it all, was quite literally the downfall of it all for me. Pacing, I gave a 4. The reason it's not a 5 is because that ending, that's where I was like, oh my God, I don't care. And that's when you get to points where like, oh my God, I don't care. Those are the points where I'm like, let's pick up the pace. Let's pick up the pace. Overall enjoyment, I gave it a 4 because literally the entire book I was enjoying. It was just literally that end portion that I'm not talking about, because I feel like that end portion would, like, if I told you what happened in the end portion, that would be like the biggest spoiler on the face of the planet. And while I do drop little spoils and toils here and there, I don't want to spoil the entire book for y'all. Overall enjoyment, I gave a 4, which brings us to a whopping 3.89. I think I would agree with that. Okay, y'all, we need to chat. Lady Macbeth. Cover, absolutely stunning. Contents, I don't know. I'm confused at this moment. I'm just over halfway through. The very beginning, I was like, ooh, this is interesting. This is a rabbit hole that I'm excited to go down. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, will I finish this book? Yes. I could easily DNF it, because I'm just like bored. I'm bored, but I'm also like invested because I want to know what's gonna happen, because this is taking a turn of events I wasn't expecting. Rusilla, aka Lady Macbeth, before she, like, as she's on her way to meet and marry Macbeth, it like literally delves straight in, not straight into, pretty much sometime in the first half of the book, we already have ran into where the play Macbeth starts. Macbeth is coming home from his battle at Cawdor, okay? That is where Macbeth starts. And some part in the first half of this book, we have him coming home from the battle at Cawdor. I assume if you're reading this book, you've read Macbeth. So I don't know what's spoilers and what's not spoilers at this point. Let's just say what happens in Macbeth is like happening in this book, but from the perspective of Lady Macbeth. Like, all of this is from her point of view. A part of me is like interested, but a part of me is also bored, because it is more just like her perception of everything going on, and there isn't really like the action-packed craziness of the perspective of Macbeth that you get in Macbeth. And it also doesn't feel sinister. Like, Lady Macbeth in Macbeth seems like a very sinister person. And I know obviously we're trying to paint her in a different light in this book, but I don't know. That's like one of the things I actually really liked about Lady Macbeth in Macbeth, was there was like an air of like sinisterness to her. There was an air of her trying to work the system, you know, stick it to the man. And in this, she's doing that, but in a much more demure way, in a quieter way. And I just wanted her to be a bad bitch. And she's not being a bad bitch. If that makes any sense. So yeah, I'm really not sure how I'm feeling about Lady Macbeth. Okay, y'all. Ugh, we need to talk. This is probably a weird angle. I just finished Lady Macbeth. Of course, I will give my full thoughts later when we do the rating breakdown, but I just wanted to say how much I don't think I like this book. It's an average book. I think I am gonna steal what Sydney from Sid the Bookworm said about this book. She mentioned in one of her recent wrap-ups where she felt like it's actually kind of a good analogy considering Lady Macbeth literally lives in a veil pretty much the whole time. It feels like you're looking at the story from afar, like you're never up close and in person with it, which is actually kind of interesting because this entire book is from the perspective of Lady Macbeth. So it's all from her perspective, like it's first person point of view situation going on here. And yet you feel disconnected from the story, like you're not actually involved in it. And it's a very strange feeling to have throughout a book. Not gonna lie, I was really impressed with how long that sat on my head. It definitely felt like you were kind of like viewing the entire story through a veil of your own. And I don't know, maybe that's intentional of Ava Reid, but it was just weird. It was a weird feeling. Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. Let's talk about this book. In the last clip you guys saw, that was like a good final thoughts about the overall experience of the book, but let's like deep dive into our rating categories. So for characters, I gave it a 4. I really liked all the characters. I thought it was interesting how Ava Reid took these like already pre-existing characters and mutated them a little bit, made them her own. And it was very interesting because I feel like for the men in the story, she made them more aggressive and almost brutish. In Macbeth by Shakespeare, I felt like the men were almost more conniving and not as brutish. Whereas in Ava Reid's retelling, she really made the characters just like power hungry. And while they were power hungry in Macbeth, they were power hungry in a very strategic, conniving way. And in this one, it felt more barbaric almost in a way. For me personally, as a woman, scary men are the ones that like really think through, are really conniving, are really strategic on what their plans and things are. A big burly giant of a man who just swings a sword isn't scary to me. And that's how these men felt in this book. They felt like they were just big oafs with swords. I mean, they're smart men, but they aren't smart in the strategic sense that they were in Shakespeare's Macbeth. So for me, the men in this just seemed brutish and they weren't terrifying to me. But I think she was trying to make them feel terrifying. And I'm sure to some people, this type of man would be terrifying, but for me personally, in my lived experience, like, no. If anything, they seemed almost more oafish, and like I wanted to laugh at them. I thought that was just an interesting dynamic change for the characters. And also, again, I noted earlier how Lady Macbeth seemed more, she's like 17 in this book. She seemed like a 17-year-old who was trying to act like a 25-year-old, right? She seemed like she was trying to act like an adult, but at the end of the day, she was still a child. Whereas in Shakespeare's Macbeth, she seemed more conniving and she seemed like she had more self-autonomy almost. I don't know. I just felt like Shakespeare's Macbeth was more sinister. Whereas this one, again, everything was muted. Everything was muted down. Writing, I gave a 5. I really did enjoy the writing. Plot, I gave a 3. I gave it a 3 because, I mean, let's be real, it's just taking, this also goes into originality. I give originality a 3 as well. And it's just taking something that's pre-existing and shifting it a little bit. And I just don't know if she did enough to alter what was originally given to her to give it anything more than just a 3. Rereadability, I gave this a 2. The likelihood of me rereading this is slim to none. Emotional impact, I also gave a 2. I think the words were interesting. I think the storytelling was interesting. But at no point was I scared. Was I upset? It was just, I think there was like one scene where I was like, oh shit. There was one scene. But yeah, outside of that one moment, I was just kind of like there for the story, trying to understand if I liked or did not like the story. Resolution, I gave a 3. I was just kind of like, meh. Pacing, I gave it a 4. While I don't know how I truly feel about the story overall, I will say the pacing was never lagging. It never went by too slow. It never went by too fast. I do feel like the overall story kept rolling and it kept going. And then overall enjoyment, I gave a 3. Just like an average book that I read. With all those categories rated, this brings Lady Macbeth to a 3.22, which I agree with that sentiment. I do believe that Lady Macbeth does fall into the just kind of an average book rating. And I think it falls into that sentiment. You have all these taglines of death-touched, poison-eyed, and witch-kissed, and I wanted Lady Macbeth, I wanted her to just be such a badass. I wanted her to be that bitch that just like took her story by the horns and just wrote it, and she didn't. She felt like almost a side character to her own story. I hated that. I wasn't a fan of it. I don't know. I just like characters and stories that have a little more spunk to them. And Lady Macbeth was lacking in all the spunk. And I truly believe that the only thing that kept me hanging on with Lady Macbeth and I didn't DNF it was the writing. Because the writing is the only category I gave 5 stars. Because I thought the writing was beautiful. But it's just like everything else that goes into a book and goes into the story was lacking. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know in the comments down below, have you read any of these books? If you have you liked any of these books? Honestly, one of the things I actually liked about, side tangent. One of the things I actually really liked about all the books in today's video is they aren't like slap you in the face, obvious fantasy books, if that makes sense. Watermoon potentially was the closest one you could get, but A House with Good Bones, you may not think that's fantasy right off the rip. It's typically, I believe, categorized more as a horror book, but trust and believe towards the end, that was all fantastical up the wazoo. And then Lady Macbeth was like one of those weird, it's kind of like a weird book that you can't quite categorize, but it had witches and it had magical beasts. And if you ask me, that's pretty fantastical in my eyes. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you guys have any other not quite fantasy book recommendations, because I kind of liked that they weren't obvious choices in the realm of fantasy. Anyways, y'all, with that noted, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.